Hello and welcome back to Dan's Beginning Harmonica Lessons. And I'm going to stray a little from the lessons, even though I'm going to place this video with chapter 4 in the book. What I'd actually like you to do is go to go to appendix number 3 on page 105 of your book. Appendix number 3. And I'm also going to be doing this entire lesson on a keyboard. So if you have a piano or a keyboard at your house that you can use, go ahead and pause this video. And I recommend that you actually do this lesson on the piano or the keyboard with me. So you kind of get a free little piano lesson out of this, kind of 2-4 for you. So again, go to the appendix number 3, page 105 of your book. And I'm going to actually turn this camera around, so we're going to be seeing the piano for the rest of this lesson. Okay, there is my keyboard. Now, when we look at a keyboard, I'm going to go over the layout here of the keyboard and why it's such a useful tool. In fact, I would say that the piano or the keyboard and the circle of fifth, and you'll see your circle of fifth right to the left of your appendix 3 here. It's under tools. We'll be talking about the circle of fifth in another lesson, but since it's there, I'll show it to you. So going back to 105 and looking at the piano on the video, you see that there are white keys and there are black keys, right? Which is which? And what do they mean? The white keys are essentially your letters. They make up the alphabet of the music from A to G. We have a 7-letter diatonic alphabet. However, we actually have 12 notes in that alphabet because we also have these black keys, which are sharps and flats. Okay, so these are going to relate to the white keys, and we'll show you how that works. So the first thing, if you were taking a piano lesson, the piano teacher would tell you need to find your middle C. So if you look at your 2 black keys right here, to the left of those 2 black keys, that is your C. And in this case, it's the middle C because it's right around the middle of the keyboard. All right. So we'll call that the middle C. But regardless, anywhere, every white key below the 2 black keys is still going to be a C. It's just going to be in a different octave, a different place. On the keyboard is a really low one, but it's still a C. So from our middle C, our scale is going to go from this C to this C. Okay, because a scale is an octave. So even though there's 7 different letters in a scale, there's 8 total because we repeat the bottom note at the top. So we have our 2 different C's on our scale. Now the black keys, these are our sharps and flats. So what does that mean? Well, if I'm on my C note here and I go up to this black key, that's a C sharp. And think of a sharp like a tack on a chair. And you sit on the tack and you sit on the sharp tack and you get up really fast. So a sharp brings the note up a half a step, or a semitone, if you want a more technical term, from the C to the C sharp. Now, if this is the C, then this is the D, right? This is our D. If you go down to that very same black key, this is now a flat, a D flat. Think of a flat tire, you go down, right? So up for the sharp, down for the flat. Ascend to the sharp, descend to the flat. That's all that means. Same note. Technical term for that is enharmonic. It means it's the same note, but a different name. Okay. So when we when you'll find our scales, there's a formula we're going to use, and you'll also find this formula at the bottom of page 105 and your appendix number 3. Right? But let's go through what all that means. So if I were to play every single note from C to C, including the white and black, we'll have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. You notice there's no black key there. It goes right to F. F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then there's no black there. It goes right to the C. Okay, and that is what is called a chromatic scale. That means it includes all 12 notes of our musical alphabet, including the sharps and the flats. The 7 letters and the sharps and flats make up 12 notes. And every song and every bit of music is all made up of just those 12 notes. Imagine that. But it's true. Okay. So now how do we get but chromatic scales are nice, but chromatic scales don't help us. We don't use chromatic scales when we're playing a song. We use a diatonic scale. A diatonic scale is that 8-note octave that we use in these scales. So it's going to go from C to C. So here's the formula. We're going to start from the root. And the technical term for this, if you want to know it, is tonic. But we're going to start from the root, and then we're going to go whole step, skip the half step, or the whole, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So again, root, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Now what you might have noticed is on my C scale, I did not touch any of those black keys. All right. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It is all white keys. That is because the key of C does not have any sharps or flats. It's the only key that does not. And your harmonica, if you are using a C harmonica, also does not have any sharps or flats in it. But most keys do. And you might think, well, why do I need to know this if my harmonica is already tuned into the key of C? Why do I need to know anything else? Because you'll find out as we go along through these lessons that you don't always play in the key of C, even though you're playing a C harmonica. Plus, you may want to get some notes in there that may not be in that key, and we can do that through bending notes. And we can bend the notes on the harmonica to get some notes that are not part of that actual scale. All right, and that's a good skill to have as a harmonica player, and you'll have some of those skills by the time you finish the book. So anyway, so we see the C scale has no sharps or flats, so it's nice and easy. And it's also a good way to if you forget this formula, you can just do that C scale, and you'll know if you don't use any of the black keys and you end up back on the C again at the bottom, that you're doing it correctly. So let's do a D scale. So if this is C, this is D. Let's do the same formula now. Whole step, half step, whole step, half step. We have to end up on D again. That's how we know we're doing it right. So if you notice, there were some black keys in there, right? You're also going to hear that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay. So again, with these people, in that one we had 2 different black keys in there, right? If we go into the E, we're gonna find even more. So whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. And there's our E. We heard the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We ended up on the same note we started on the E. We did it right. And that's how we know. You'll know pretty quickly if you hit a wrong note when you're doing this. So that is how we find our major scales. And this is very useful as you go along and continue to learn, because making chords, finding chords, requires knowledge of the keys and of the scales, because we don't want to have to try to memorize every chord. That would be pretty difficult. But we can find our chords first on the piano and then applying that to our harmonica, because a chord is a major triad chord, which is just a 3-note major chord. Say you're looking at a chord sheet and you see a C. Well, all you need to know, if you know your C scale, is the first, third, and fifth note of the scale, and there you have a C chord. We did our D. You have a D chord, first, third, and fifth of the D note. All right, and so forth. So anyway, we'll get into that later. You don't have to know that now, but I'm just showing you why, once you know how to do these scales, especially the major scale, it opens up a whole lot of doors for you. And in so many ways when it comes to making music that will help you along the line. So anyway, for now we just focused on the major scales and how to do a major scale. There's only one other thing I'm going to tell you. This is a kind of advanced theory idea, so hopefully you could kind of grasp this. But if you remember, I told you that when you play a C sharp or a D flat, that it's called an enharmonic, because it's just another name for the same note. It's either a C sharp or a D flat. It's the same note. Watch what happens when I do an F sharp major scale. So here's our F sharp over here. Okay. So let's do this same formula here. F sharp, G sharp. It's a whole step to the A sharp. Half step to the B, and we go whole step to the C sharp, whole step to the D sharp, and then we're going to do another whole step right here. Okay, well, sonically that's an F, all right? We could say that is an F, but we have a problem here, because number one, there's a rule, and there's a good reason for this, and we'll get into that in another lesson, but there's a good reason for this, but we have to have one of each of those 7 notes. All right. And secondly, you can't have 2 of the same. So I'm on my F right now. Well, my next note is going to be back to the F sharp, right? But we can't have an F and an F sharp. You also notice that we skipped the E altogether. We went from a D sharp to this F. Okay, there has to be an E. There has to be all 7 letters, and there can only be one of each. They can be sharp, flat, natural, whatever, but there can only be one. So we have to do something with this F then. And so just as we said, but going up a half a step from the C is a C sharp, we're going to a half a step up from the E, we're going to call that an E sharp. So now we're simply calling the F an E sharp. And that way we have all 7 letters. Here's our F sharp again. We have all 7 letters of that alphabet, and we're not missing any. So it's okay if you don't totally grasp that concept yet. I'm just kind of throwing it out there as fodder for thought. But it is important to understand that element of music, that there can only be one note. There has to be all 7 notes, and there can only be one of each. And in this case, they were mostly sharps. F sharp, G sharp, A sharp. But they were still F, G, and A. Okay, and those have to be represented. But you cannot have an F and an F sharp. You also cannot have if you were doing that as a G flat, you'd have the same problem, but it would be here when you get to the B, G sharp, I'm sorry, G flat, A flat, B flat, and then you go to the B. And again, same thing. You can't have a B and a B flat. But if you were to go from this B to the next one, you would end up on a D flat, which means you're skipping the C. So we can just simply call this B a C flat. So that's kind of weird. It's kind of counterintuitive in many ways. But as you get to study music more and more, you'll kind of understand the idea that of enharmonics and how sometimes we have to use the same note but just give it a different name to make it fit within the music theory. So I'm going to probably get a little complicated on that. But in any case, the main thing I want you to understand for this lesson is just understanding the formula for your major scales. And we'll go from there, and we'll be mentioning this periodically. So practice those on your piano is what I recommend. And practice your middle scale for now on your harmonica, according to the chapter 4 directions. And we will see you in the next lesson for chapter 4.